And it's time for Dying to Bloom with your host, Kerry Potter.
Good morning. Welcome to Dying to Bloom. This is a monthly show that discusses a variety of topics, but the purpose is to bring educational information on funeral and burial options and choices. Yes, something you may not want to think about, but it is important when thinking about leaving this planet to our children and theirs. Is our current practices sustainable, and do they make sense? I would like to also ask you, if you are out and about by Barnes & Noble or other stores, if you could pick up a copy of Hudson Valley Magazine. They do have a nice feature this month, the June issue, on natural burial, and I am honored to be in the magazine as well, along with a few other folks who are in this type of industry and promoting green burials. I am very honored today to have here in the studio Director of Rockland County Veterans Service Agency, Jerry Donnellan. Good morning, Jerry.
Hey, how are you?
As I hope our listeners know, Jerry does also have his own show here on WRCR AM 1700 on the first Friday of every month called Rock Vets, which airs right after the Stephen Jordan show. So Jerry will be on the air soon as well. Next week? Is that next week already?
Back by popular demand. Wow.
Our topic today, of course, is Memorial Day. And I ask you to think for a moment, and I'm guilty of this myself, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear Memorial Day? Most of us, it may be, woohoo, a 3-day weekend, barbecue, time to open the pool. You can start wearing white.
Oh, yeah. I am so fashion conscious. I'm busy digging up my whites right now. Stop it, Steve.
But, of course, Memorial Day does have a greater, more important meaning than that, and that's why the holiday was established, and I couldn't think of anyone else better to have here in the studio than Jerry Donnellan. Jerry, why don't you start by just telling us the history of Memorial Day?
Okay. I think as people Steve's and my age know, it was originally called Decoration Day. It began after the Civil War when Southern widows started decorating the graves of the soldiers who had fallen, and it spread north and became a tradition. A number of towns and cities claim credit for it, of course, but it ran like that through and into the Eisenhower administration, when the name was formally changed from Decoration Day to Memorial Day. And the obvious idea is to remember those who didn't come home. I know a lot of people get confused whether it's about veterans. Actually, it's about people who didn't get a chance to become veterans, people who never returned home, and the debt that we owe to them. And that doesn't mean you've got to spend the weekend hanging crepe and being all sad about things, but I think it's good that if we take a break from our picnics and pool openings and the rest, just to tell the children what it is all about, that these people gave everything they had. And the thing that always strikes me is they're very much alike. I mean, we picture the guys at Bunker Hill with the tri-corner hats, and, you know, the guys in Vietnam with the camouflage and the helicopters, and now into Desert Storm and on into Iraq and Afghanistan. But actually, they're all the same people. The technology, the weaponry, and the clothing have all changed, but that 19-year-old standing on that wall with a weapon waiting for the enemy, his thoughts, whether it is in 1776 or 2016, are the same. He's a young man, you know, barely out of his teens for the most part, and now a thing that we tend to forget is there are so many women involved in the military. Like when I was in during Vietnam, the percentage was extremely small, and the number of women in country in Vietnam was even smaller. They were primarily nurses and air traffic controllers. And 8 were killed. Were killed in action in Vietnam. At that point, the number of women was probably in the 1% area. Now we're approaching 16%, and women are taking on all kinds of roles, and now combat roles as well. There is a push to get them in the infantry. Why anybody would want to be in the infantry boggles my mind, but I sort of got there on the American plan. Steve voted for it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But go ahead, say it, Steve. You're going to explode if you don't.
I did vote for it. Well, for the person who implemented it, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Feel free. We don't want you to explode.
Can I pause for a moment?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Just
Jump in.
on that topic, I'm just curious on what your opinion is on, is it new legislation or proposed legislation on women registering as well at age 18?
Well, I think it's going to open up a whole bag of things that we haven't even began to consider. I think the good side of it is, yes, it makes everybody equal, and the good side of it is I don't think that we're ever going to see a draft again. I just don't see that as a possibility, because we don't need the numbers that we once did to fight a war. Like at the end of World War II, 16 million people came out of uniform. And now, with the draft gone in 73, the numbers just aren't there. They don't need that many people anymore. As you've seen, a lot of it is carried by special forces and drones, so small units. That, and we're using, and for my money, overusing the National Guard and Reserve units who had signed on basically to do weekends and part-time during the summer, and their idea, I would think, was if there is a national disaster or flood or, whatever, they would be called into service at that time. But now they're being used over and over and over again, some with as many as 16 tours in a combat zone. And I don't know if I had ever made it through Vietnam the first time, what my thoughts would be about going back in. That, and the fact that one of the reasons there was such a high percentage of psychological discharges in World War II was that the people who were fighting the war didn't know when, if ever, it was going to be over. They were there for the duration, and I think that added to the mental burden. Yet now we seem to have gone full circle, and we're asking these guardsmen and reservists to do just the same thing and not know when, if ever, getting pulled from jobs and families and all that, going and fighting, and then 6 months later being called up again. It's a heck of a burden. And but at any rate, I think women should be entitled to the same. I got off on a rant, but hopefully it'll never be tested, because I really don't see there ever being a draft again.
I have to admit that part of my resurgence in recognizing Memorial Day and those that serve stems from my own nephew who graduated from West Point last year. He's currently on base in Colorado, and I'm not sure what his future is going to be as far as where he might be sent. Yeah. And that's frightening. It's a mixture of feelings. I'm frightened and I'm extremely proud. And my parents have passed for years now. And I feel a little guilty and kind of forgetting the true meaning and also what my parents taught me. My mother, her father having served in several wars, World War I. He happened to be in Pearl Harbor, by the way, by accident. He was working as a rigger out in the harbor on the day of the bombing. Wow. But my mother always taught me respecting the flag, remembering our veterans, that really patriotic importance. And so now that my nephew has graduated West Point, it kind of brought to me a resurgence of what my mother had taught me, and I want to make sure I pass that on to my children, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have this show, and thank you for coming in, to remind people and to consider doing as you suggested, while you still have your barbecue, still have your celebration, but teach your kids what it's about and take a moment and pause and remember.
Yeah, it's important now, I think, more than ever, because when Steve and I were kids, trying to work you in here, Steve, just jump in anytime. Maybe a career here for you. When we were kids, every adult male was a veteran. That's just the way it was. It was after World War II, and nobody thought anything of it. We all knew what veterans were. They were all around us. They were in our families. And in a way, there was a support network in the community itself. Now, today we talk about post-traumatic stress. There was post-traumatic stress then as well, and we as a community recognized it and took care of it in the ways that we could. There was always, somebody's crazy Uncle Charlie who would go up to the bar in the morning and start drinking. Mm-hmm. Steve has one. And then, at 5 o'clock or whatever time, people have to go up and drag them back home. And my parents, who were born in Ireland, had a saying for it. They said he'd seen too much. He was touched. And, PTSD didn't mean anything, but there was a whole network in the community who knew and understood veterans. Now, it's very few people that have, as you say, a veteran in your family or extended family. And there again, going back to World War II, there was roughly 13% of our population were veterans. Now, the people in the military represent, I think it's less than 1%. It's like 0.7%. So people just aren't aware of them. And it's not that anyone's ignoring them, it's just they're not ever present. Because when I was a kid, Boy Scout leader was a veteran, the Little League coach was a veteran. I think maybe even one of my nuns was a veteran. She certainly acted like it. But, maybe I'll give it back to you for a minute.
You are listening to Dying to Bloom. I'm Kerry Potter, and joining me here in the studio today is Jerry Donnellan, Director of the Rockland County Veterans Service Agency, and we are talking about Memorial Day. Our phone lines are open at 845-362-0013. If you are an elected official who would like to share information on your Memorial Day events, or if you're someone who's tuning in who has lost a family member or relative or friend while serving, and you'd like to call in and give your own little memorial of that person, please feel free to share that with us as well. Now, Jerry, you talked about Decoration Day, and somewhere along the line, that Decoration Day did become the 3-day Memorial Weekend. And as I did my own little research on Memorial Day, I found out a lot of interesting things, right. And one of them being that there are some people who really would like to see Memorial Day always remain as May 30th. And I don't think I realized, or maybe I did, that you were the one who started the watchfires?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because we had formed the Vietnam Veterans Organization, and we had our first meeting in March of '87, and I didn't know how many people I was going to get. I had threatened a few friends, but we got a good turnout. And I knew at that point we needed to do something, get the people involved. Otherwise, they would just drift away, because they had been, on their own since coming home from the war. And we were not the most popular bunch. So I thought that we should do something for Memorial Day, but how counterproductive would it be if we did a parade and nobody came? I mean, it's an old Carl Sandburg line, but so I didn't want to go in that direction, so we stole the idea from Washington. General Washington, used these signal fires up and down the river, starting in Beacon, New York, and that's why Beacon, New York is called Beacon, New York. There's a little piece of history for you, Steve. And down to Sandy Hook, New Jersey, and Washington would use them to signal troop movements and other messages that he had. So I took that idea and combined it with the idea of our fire bases in Vietnam, which were always on mountaintops for obvious reasons. So originally we put together the fires. We had one on top of Bear Mountain, the peak you can see from the lodge, top of High Tor, actually just a little south of the peak of High Tor because we had to get fire and emergency vehicles in, Hook Mountain, Clausland Mountain in Orangeburg, and then someone suggested, and rightfully so, that we should do one at the end of the Piermont Pier because that's where so many GIs departed from and never came back. So the watchfire was kind of a signal beacon for the troops that had yet to come home. So we took Washington's idea and supersized it, if you will. We built these fires, they're the size of 2-story houses. And at the stroke of midnight, on the traditional Memorial Day, the first minute of Memorial Day, we light these fires simultaneously, and they burn for the 24 hours of Memorial Day. And the guys stand watch, taking an hour or two. Some guys stay on all night. But again, the idea is that beacon, that homing beacon for those who have yet to come home.
And how many years has the watchfires been occurring? And do other areas now do this?
Yeah, it's been picked up across the country. For that matter, we had them in Iraq. Some of the troops from our area and it was kind of funny because they couldn't find any wood to build a fire because they're out in the desert, so they were breaking up ammunition cases and anything else they could find.
Wow.
But yes, it has spread, and in answer to your first question, this will be the 30th year that we've lit these watchfires. It started out as something just to do for that Memorial Day to remember our troops and not require an audience, and now it has. I mean, we have large crowds at these. It was never our intent to get a crowd, and there are no speeches or any of the usual Memorial Day stuff. We just welcome the people and light the fire at midnight, and they just burn right on through.
Can I ask you the locations?
Oh, sure. Yeah, they've changed over the years. Now the northernmost fire is at Bowline Park in Havistraw. Coming south, the watchfire on 45 at Jean Levy Park. Then the one on Clausland Mountain is still in the same place. It's right at the peak of Clausland Mountain in Orangetown. And then our fire, my fire, which is at the end of the Piermont Pier, on the east end of the Piermont Pier. And actually, over the years, there have been a number of funny experiences. When we first lit the fires, people in Westchester were calling in emergencies that there were all these house fires.
Oh, my goodness.
And then one year, I managed to wangle a battery of 105 howitzers, large guns, and we lined them up on the pier facing north, and at dawn, we fired 46 rounds for the 46 people that were killed in Vietnam from Rockland County. And we started getting all kinds of calls from Lamont Geological. We were registering, and the sound was bouncing off Hook Mountain and coming back down the river. And we were asked nicely not to do that again.
Oh boy.
But it worked well once. It's the old story about it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission.
And do children come to the event?
Yeah, no, we encourage that. At night, it's difficult because little kids, at midnight, but they do burn for the full 24 hours, so they could come the next day during the day and see it.
Right.
Or, everybody and their brother's got a cell phone now, so pictures.
Well, I'm certainly going to do that this year. With my children are a little older now, and the youngest is 14. But I think it's a nice family thing to do as well, and talk about our own family history.
Sure.
We do have a caller on the line. Good morning. You're on Dying to Bloom.
Good morning. How y'all?
Oh, Jesus. You
Hey,
got on this show,
Bob.
I knew I was going to get that from
too. I
you.
thought Trump had something about you guys coming into this country.
How are you, Bob?
I'm fine as frog hairs. How y'all?
All right. And I know you're a Korean War veteran, correct?
Yes, I am. And I just wanted to let we went down and helped them build the pile of wood down there at the end of the pier. And I was up on top of the pile.
And nobody lit it? What a missed opportunity.
On top of the pile, that sounds like a bad place to be.
I fell down inside. They said, hurry up, cover it up. I was up on top, and I slipped, and I fell all the way down to the bottom of the pile.
Ow.
And I didn't get hurt, but I was just, I was sort of rubbery, and I bounced all over the place.
We're talking from the neck up now.
Yeah, from the neck up, yeah. and I could hear the guys hollering, "Hurry up, cover it up so he can't get out." But I tell you, it was a great experience going down there and helping the guys stack the logs and putting it up. It was fantastic. I did it a couple of years. And after that, I was afraid that maybe they would be serious and hide me inside of it.
No, they have regulations about burning.
Oh, they have regulations against that. But
the toxic fumes that would come from that.
Well, I guess that would be right. Yeah, yeah, I guess so. But I did it a couple of years, and then I stopped. But it was quite an experience going down there and helping the guys and doing that. And I was down there a couple of years when we lit it off, and I must have stayed until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And boy, did I catch hell when I got home.
Yeah, sure. You were at a fire. Uh-huh.
Sure, you was at the fire.
Bob, my father, who passed away about 10 years ago, was in the Korean War. And, of course, I'd just like to bring him up as well, Arthur Crow. And he was a cook in the Army in the Korean War. And that came in handy because he did have 6 children. So Dad made breakfast every Sunday, the big batch of pancakes, and every once in a while he'd cook and he'd reminisce about his days cooking in the service.
I want to tell you, the military had the best food in the world.
Really, Jerry?
Well, you got to take it from the source here,
Well, it was.
Anybody
it was
grows up on possum.
Got a hold of it. I just thought I'd call in and break your chops a little bit. So you all have a great one.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, bye-bye.
And we do have another caller on the line. Good morning.
Is this the Kerry and Jerry show?
You got it.
It is. Today it is.
Well, nice to hear about Rocco Marino picking up to help out with that work. This is Phil.
Hi, Phil.
And I'm thinking back, Jerry, I'm only 39, and I brought up pallets on top of Clauseland the first year and the second year of the start of this thing.
Yeah.
So what happened? I think I was older than that. I'm losing track of time.
Yeah. No, that was 1987.
Yeah. I remember accumulating all the pallets I could out of the beverage store.
Right,
and,
yep.
Setting stuff aside way back when and lugging them up the top of the hill and piling them up. I hope I piled them right. I guess they all burned.
I got a feeling.
Well, I just wanted to call in and say it's great to keep this tradition going.
Yeah, Phil, I was surprised. As I say, I figured if we could pull it off the first year, we were good. And here we are 30 years later, and it's going stronger than ever, which is, it's nice to see.
Yeah. Well, I missed a lot of stuff because I was in the Navy, so other than some training for being part of shooting the big guns on the Wisconsin, I never made it to Korea.
Yeah.
They went over there and they left me behind. They transferred me to the Baltimore, and I went to the Queen's coronation. So, go figure.
Yeah. Must have been your wardrobe.
Take care. Have a good day.
Bye, Phil. Good morning. You're on Dying to Bloom.
Morning, Kerry and Jerry.
Morning.
Chippy, how's it going?
Good.
All right.
So, I'm sure you guys brought it up. I've been going to watch fires over at Gene Levy since they started 20 years ago. Right?
30.
30 years ago. Okay, so yeah, I haven't been going for. I think it's been official for 20, right?
Levy started after the original watch fires because we had them at Bear Mountain and High Tour.
It's the first official site.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was 20 years ago.
Yeah, it is probably 20. Mm-hmm.
So, I've been going there, hang out. I'm a young guy, hang out with the vets. Ever since I've been 33 now, since I've been 13 and going, learned a lot. it's a good experience, and it's not about, this weekend isn't about the sales, isn't about the barbecues. It's taking out a few minutes to remember the fallen.
Yeah, no, it's very true.
So.
Agreed. Thank you.
All right, have a good one, guys.
Yeah, okay, you too.
Bye.
Just to come back around on the cemeteries, we obviously, and we were talking about Rocco earlier, the Veterans Cemetery over on Brick Church Road is the current working cemetery for the county. And I can't encourage veterans enough to take advantage of it. I'm not selling anything, but the cost of a plot for the veteran and spouse is $135, which compared to private or religious cemeteries is
a bargain.
I don't want to sound like I'm selling cemeteries.
No, it is, but it's a huge cost for people to incur.
But the other point is I encourage the veterans to get their paperwork together. There's something called a DD-214, sometimes referred to as a discharge, and that's what moves all of the wheels. And I can't tell you how many times I get calls from widows saying that Charlie just passed and we can't find his DD-214. We need that for the stone. We need that if they want an honor guard at the funeral. It's the ticket to the ballpark. So while you're still alive, as Kerry said, it's not one of these things you want to talk about, but you would save the rest of your family a lot of grief if you just put it in a safe place and let people know where it is, or leave it with your doctor, attorney, minister, however you choose to do it. But that can cause a lot of grief when the family doesn't have that piece of paper.
And folks can visit rockvets.com for information on that and how to contact Jerry. And Jerry, the phone number for your office?
845-638-5244.
Jerry, I've read also, I don't know if you have it at every watchfire, but at least some of them do have a pair of boots and maybe a helmet left out.
Some do. Some of the watchfires, like the one in Piermont and the one in Orangeburg, are so big that we couldn't get something like that close enough to the fire to make sense in terms of what we're trying to portray, and not, unfortunately, be melted, because it's like a house fire. Sometimes it's just a little too big.
Well, I like that idea, the symbolism, because I think that really helps create a picture for the folks that attend, and also, again, for our children and folks that we're trying to...
This year there's a special piece in that earlier in the year, well, actually in October of last year, we buried the remains of veterans who had been gone for some time. There was a World War I veteran, a Korean veteran, a World War II veteran, and a Vietnam veteran whose ashes had been left with the funeral home. And that happens, unfortunately. So we took the ashes and gave them a full military honored funeral at that time in October, and each of the flags that were given to those veterans, the flags that would have been on their casket, were given to the Watchfire commanders, and those flags from those fallen guys will be at the Watchfire sites tonight. I know Pete Marino in Piermont is building a little, I don't think display is the proper word, but showing the flag off and explaining whose flag it was and why. So
very important.
Yeah.
Any final words, Jerry?
No. As I say, the only thing, enjoy your weekend. Have your barbecues, because that's what those of us who fought for this country fought for. But take a minute to talk to the kids and explain to them what we're really doing here.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining me today. And again, I'm Kerry Potter. Have a good weekend.